Just smashed. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to meeting in order. Welcome to the January 17th, 2024 meeting at CB11's Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning Committee. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I am the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:40 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by District Manager Angel Liskane, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand. As for those that are remote, the chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand. When a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can discuss amongst the committee and begin to speak. Please keep your questions and comments germane and succinct to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand in person and or through Zoom and wait to be recognized. Roll call. We will now take attendance by roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Adem Briha. Present. Kevin Crouch was absent. Kenneth Crouch. Jessica Elliott.
Present.
Jessica Morris.
Here.
Nelson Orama.
Present.
Beverly Pavon.
Present.
Vinnie Torres.
Present.
Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez.
Excused.
You have quorum.
Thank you, Angel. Now we'll move on to the agenda. Adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to the adopted agenda, you may raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes, as stated last month, I am very negligent and apologize and will ensure to get this updated by the next month's committee meeting. Announcements. Any announcements? Excellent. All right, so let's move on to our order of business for the evening. Well, we don't have them. You guys had a great meeting last week from our excellent vice chair, Joseph Obama. So, as today is we've been having discussions since the month of November, we're going to take a position today on the city of Yes for economic opportunity. As stated, and it's been pretty much crafted over the last few months, we've been talking about separating these items based off the 18 subjects that were proposed by the Department of City Planning, and which we will go through each item of the 18 subjects, and we will take a position of whether to support the subject and or not support the subject. After which, I would think then we would make the decision of whether or not to add considerations and or modifications, or not add considerations and or modifications. To the committee, I implore you, if we do not support an item, I expect us to present the consideration, right? Only out of respect for the process, the DCP. That being said, I have no further commentary on the matter. If we would like, we could go through the document that was shared with the committee, where most of you already pretty much put some of your positions and more importantly, the consideration. But there was also a meeting yesterday with economic development, which they also went through these items. Not gonna necessarily stress too much their positions, as much as I do want to concern ourselves with their considerations, right? And I know that Angel was kind enough to provide us something that indicated that. It's been presented to you, it's in front of you, there's hard copies there if you guys would like to look at it. Maybe you want to take some time, maybe take 10 minutes, 5 minutes to digest it. I'm pretty much in the mood already to start making motions and adding considerations. It's pretty much at this point, we're either gonna move forward or. And as I've stated in the past, I will advise you, remember, this is only a text amendment, it's not a ULIP. It's recommendations, we're opining, we're advising the DCP as to our interest for this district, but this is also affecting the city wide, right? So, any questions?
I
Concerns?
have a question.
Yeah,
Just knowing that we're doing this across two committees, like, for example, if we voted that we did support, you know, streetscape number 12 and they did not support,
yeah,
how would
so
we
it was
reconcile that?
already, expressed that land use is going to be leading this charge.
Okay,
It's been sent in an email. It's under our purview to deal with this,
Yeah.
so we're taking their votes as probably no different than a Q and A from
Okay.
the public, right?
Great.
So we didn't get anything last month from the public, so I really did push for DCP to present to economic development,
Yeah.
and that's the result of this document. If there is a conflict, hopefully that we present that accurately at full board.
And George was at economic development also?
No.
No, okay, so they didn't necessarily get the benefit of the second round of communication that he provided. Okay, great. Just curious. Thank you.
They were emailed his letter,
Got it.
yeah, so everything that's been sent to you all, if you check the CC list, economic development was CC
Got
there
it.
as well. And actually, there are some economic development committee members at this table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was, in the economic development committee's discussion about all of the items, there was an initial kind of expression of overwhelm,
Mhm.
with all of the material. And, I think that's reflected in the positions that are coming from, you know, a sort of a gut feeling of response. Which is valid and valuable to hear and recognize that the expression of overwhelm is, I think, testament to the work that this committee's continued to do, to really trying to understand what these are saying and why the modifications that we may suggest, regardless of the support or not support, carry a good amount of weight.
Great. Thank you.
And honestly, the biggest push was to get consideration,
Yeah.
right? I'm not necessarily, I know, I'll speak to that at full board if there's concern by the committee members from economic development. But we'll continue the conversations as, you know, I'll get to tag your other hat as vice chair, and we'll speak to those members prior to our full board meeting, so they understand that their work effort is not going anywhere, right? This is us taking a position on the land use where they didn't necessarily, from example, not to reiterate what Jessica said, but I saw the contents of what was stated, and they didn't feel prepared to vote. So it may have been better in the interest of them to have abstained than take a position, but that was from what I understood. Unless any of you other fellow economic development committee members who are also sitting at this table would like to opine as to maybe why you did not support an item that we necessarily will support this evening.
I think you're right on, spot on.
So I was told a lot that it just was too much. It came
Yeah.
over another holidays. And I think that they were trying to, I can't speak for them because I wasn't at the committee, but from what I hear, it sounds like it was more concerned towards the economic disparity and some of the issues that
As it
maybe
should
they need to advocate with SBS and other agencies that doesn't necessarily affect DCP.
Okay.
So. Any other questions? Excellent.
Should we go down the line?
I think so.
Sorry, just to clarify?
Yeah.
We're going to, vote yay, nay, and for each one, or we're gonna vote yay, nay, go through them all, and then, expound on what our.
Yeah, so we would go through each item, right? The 18, support, not support. I have to take a motion. I'm not gonna tell you how to do your motion to support. But I'm gonna say motion, you guys say I motion, and then you tell me what your motion is to support or not support. Second, we vote and move on. All the way through the 18,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and do the considerations.
Thank you.
Really, because I'm pretty certain that the items we support, we're not gonna really drag out with considerations, though you have every right to add some considerations. And again, I wanna continue with the word modification, because you may have the experience of reading a specific text that screamed out at you that you need to rewrite. And I'll get to you 1 second, though, so also take into account, it was stated to us through DCP, a lot of the considerations made by all the committees were taken into account when they presented the Q&A to the authors. I That was a 40-page document that we got last week before the meeting. I understand if you weren't able to get through it, but I guess the point there is that this conversation is not gonna stop, and we know that there's gonna be a third part to this City of Yes proposal. Yes, Elsa.
So just so that I'm clear, we all gave our input that was put into an Excel spreadsheet. So that's what we're gonna use as the guideline, that's gonna be the basis, and then we're gonna fold in economic development and see where we support, where we're the same, and then wherever there are differences.
I'm not necessarily gonna entertain too much of their position as much as their considerations, right? There was already expressed rapid, for lack of a better word, ad nauseum that they weren't prepared, right? They just, and that's for some items why they didn't support it. And that's pretty, my interest there is like, if you look at the list I was given to you, look at the do not support, and there's no consideration there. Right? If you do the statistics on this, of the numbers, it's interesting, the items they did support is where I got consideration, right? So I'm more concerned about ensuring we get the considerations into stage. And then, you know, allow me to do what I do best at presenting our full board and clarifying the intent of this committee in ensuring that we took into account district-wide the concerns relevant to this proposal. Yes, Jessica?
There's also a number of items that they did support where we have concerns that are a little more into the minutia, yeah, that can perhaps inform whether full board votes support or not support. I think our input there will be valuable.
Angel had his hand raised for a
Yes, sir.
second there.
Just wanted to clarify that. Did you intend to have 18 different votes? 18 different motions? That's gonna be difficult to get the full board to approve. I would suggest, if you're amenable, to have one motion coming out of committee. If you wanted to, like, you know, take like votes, like soft votes here,
Mhm.
so you all agree on each one of the 18s, I think that is sensible, but in terms of recommending out, I would ask that it just be one recommendation.
I agree. I entertained that logic only because of DCP's request, but I would definitely want.
That we weigh in on all 18.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to do the best interest of what works for us as a board and to consolidate so our resolution doesn't look, you know,
Yeah.
either improper in format.
So 18 positions in one resolution.
Right,
Yeah.
or one motion rather.
So in the end, it'll be one motion that incorporates your position on all 18.
That makes sense.
Would that be broken up into, the ones we do support and the ones we don't support?
It'll be like, we're gonna take one page with 18 and our positions will be one motion, and we're gonna go and write and have a position on each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it'll
This
be,
would
So
be
it's like tonight, you'll talk on number one,
right,
you'll come to an agreement on number one. Once that's done, then you go to number two. And then you work your way on the list, and then in the end, these are our positions, a motion to recommend the following position.
makes sense.
Well, let's do it.
I'm ready.
Because like,
Fun.
I wanna hang out with you guys. I missed you last.
Yeah.
I was here early. I know, I was here early.
That's why I ate half the
It's
cans.
like full board, you just show up like at 8 from now on.
You wanna pull up the responses, or would you guys just like to go through it?
I can give
I'm
a
open to either.
summary if we can't pull, I don't know if we necessarily want to pull it up. Like it's shared on the screen for everyone to see our individual positions.
I think a summary might be good.
I do have I have a brief summary, but I think it would be. We'll just pull out at this moment. Alright, so we'll go to, I guess cause this was, there's like 4 different orders. I have DCP's order, our order, and then I have it in alphabetical order, so bear with me. We'll do reactivate storefronts first.
I think there's a resounding support for that one with a handful of comments.
So
Are we like
we're not
discussing these
yeah,
now?
We're not discussing what I think, but now we're just.
Shouldn't we just
supporting
discuss them each as we go through each one? Cause it's gonna get
If we're
confusing
not
to go
voting-
back.
We're not
Yeah.
doing parliamentary procedure voting for each one.
I have a comment on this one then.
We could raise that, we can have a working session discussion. So one more formality, go ahead, them, we're all adults.
All right,
I'm trying to
yeah.
you guys not to over talk and argue with each other.
Yeah, just a quick point. I think I supported this, but then I was thinking back to our meeting last week. And if I remember correctly, whoever was there, didn't George say that number one doesn't even really apply to East Harlem too much
Correct, yeah.
because we have the zoning, but so. Then I think my concern there was like, it sounds like something that everybody would want. We already have it. And we don't have too many advantages in this community over other communities. So why are we so gung ho on supporting something for like the rest of the city, when we already have it? That makes me kind of want to vote no to it, to be honest.
So you maintaining competitive advantage, I think supporting is the same as not objecting,
Yeah,
different than abstaining.
and just throwing that out there because I'm gonna vote no.
I've thought about
And
that
that's
too.
okay, and to your point, it goes back to, this isn't necessarily, remember, we're thinking for the city, right? So I do understand, we also have our position for the district, but I do think that we should be open-minded for, other districts that we may not necessarily be a part of. In all fairness.
I mean, can I just say one thing that I hear, yeah, I hear you, and normally I would say that, this isn't a life or death matter for anybody, and if it was something serious, I'd be like, yeah, but I just remember last time I was at my, community board interviews to get reappointed, I mean, a lot of these, not every district, but a lot of these other districts, like, their biggest concerns are like sanitation and stuff, and I just don't wonder when they're sitting deliberating these things, if they're worried about what's good for us. So, well, I won't say that there are other districts that may have similar needs to ours, but there aren't many. And I just think where we can have a competitive, they all might say yes to this and it won't matter. But like, and I agree with you, Jason, but at least personally, I go in to out. So like, I look at our community first and I'm worried about that. And if it's good for everybody else, that's great. But if it's better for us, that's better.
I'm gonna group, just to give it up, just as for Jessica's request for a summary, right? So goal one was to make it easier for businesses to find space and grow by giving business owners more certainty on where they can locate and what they can do in their space. Specific to the storefronts, their position, this is DCP, is to enable incorrect, is to simplify rules for businesses types allowed on commercial streets. So,
Question, I thought this was basically because if the place was vacant for 2 years.
They can be grandfathered in.
Yeah,
they can-
that, they had to
That's
go
part of it.
into the position in order to open up a store. I thought that was the main reason for this.
that's a part of it.
That's part of
That's
it.
a part of it. That's why I can list out all six proposals, that might create more confusion. That's why I just kept that one piece to the storefront for this 8 item.
And it's specifically non-conforming uses.
Right. Oh, okay, right.
I suggested a point of review for reactivation, meaning coming to, if there is, if somebody's gonna be reactivated in a non-conforming use. A point of local review seems to, I don't know if there's a process for that or what, but. And again, to your point, I think a healthy city. We don't exist in a vacuum. Competitive advantage is important, but
And just to motivate us into taking a position, right, so we don't do this for all 17 items, you all already supported this.
Yeah, I don't know why we're talking so long about the one. We agreed on the most. Can we just support it and move
we
on?
have a process, so we're not making a motion to support.
No, we were talking it out as a working session, and then the next stage, which was pretty much where now I'm trying to engage us to see if we would interest in supporting it, and moving on, or not supporting it, and moving. Let's take it to a vote.
Support.
I thought because all of us have support the,
Yeah, we could have changed that.
Unfortunately, that's
Yeah,
just
that
for
was,
school.
Oh, okay,
We have to
okay.
do it in committee for the public.
How do we do if we don't have total consensus? So.
We're never gonna have total.
Yeah,
consensus.
no.
Majority, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Okay,
So I
majority.
think you have majority support. Is
Correct.
that-
So let's vote on this one.
Yeah, so all those who support, say aye. Aye. Those who do not support, so the motion passes. Support. think that's the best way to do it moving forward. Does that work?
Yeah, and I think if we're gonna color it with anything, we can, like,
Yeah, we'll come
modifications,
back
we
with the
can,
consideration.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah.
Just for me, Chair, if I can, I'm a no throughout all items, just so that.
All 18 items
All
are no.
items are no.
The only thing I worry about with coming back about recommendations afterwards is then we're gonna be talking about 36 things instead of 18, so if we could do it together, I feel like that would make more sense.
Yeah, if you would like, I'm open to what you guys are.
What do you mean?
They're
18?
different
That's
modes
six.
of brain function.
But
So for the first item, I have a comment from Mark Bogursky. He says he requests that the community boards be given a chance to review and vote on recommendations for reuse of commercial space if the 2-year period has expired.
So is he suggesting that to be a requested
As a
modification?
consideration.
yeah, I think that's fair. And I,
Actually.
so then,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a motion to support with,
I think you already support it.
yeah, we're,
Yeah,
we're
we're,
not
we're past
motioning
the-
at
we're
this
gonna make a
point.
brand new motion at the end, we're going to this.
Yeah.
Nothing going wrong.
with conditions, that's what I was.
I won't change my position on anything else.
Simple as process.
You know, that's because.
I'm good with it now. It's the first one, I would say.
Yeah.
I think we
I mean, we do.
in the 90s.
I'm not necessarily
I'm out
stressing
of
that.
it. Shit about it.
Beverly Pavone stated no objection, don't support if it conflicts with city, yes, housing opportunities, I think we all have that position. But that's not in front of us, so I don't necessarily, do you wanna add it? Do you guys think that that's something that, I don't think it's necessarily relevant, but I don't think it's ineffective either, right? That that DCP knows that we're concerned that we're voting on this before housing. I think we've expressed that in our Q and A. Which I don't know how many of us got a chance to read that 40-page document. But DCP is pretty much using that document to start rewriting, the text amendment for when it goes through CPC next month. Any other considerations? And I'll just, for the record, I'll read out Jessica Morris's. We had suggest appointment review for reactivation of vacancies over 2 years, possible CD permits approval. So I agree, I think that's in line with Mark, if everybody else is in agreement. And I don't have anything else from economic development. Angel? Good?
I just need the final wording for the modification.
Is that going to happen at this meeting?
yeah,
Request that community boards be given a chance to review and vote on recommendations for reuse of commercial space if the 2-year period has expired. It's already written there for Mark, so we don't have to, we should just be able to copy and paste that.
can we wordsmith just slightly, because I don't think it's just commercial spaces. It could be any non-conforming use. So I think we could simplify it to say community boards to review recommendation
Or reuse?
Non-conforming
after
spaces.
2-year expiration or something like that. Does that work? Community boards to review.
Who is scribing right now? In the live doc, Angel, we are keeping this as a new
I
line.
think it's yours.
I will start a new line here, of our recs and copy down.
Modification, you know, say that's a different file.
I know, right?
Maybe you say that's a different file.
I thought we said the way it was good.
Yeah, we.
Well, because it says
I know
specifically
Jessica-
commercial.
Just change commercial to reuse of non-conforming space.
Okay, that's fair. Change commercial to non-conforming and then we're good.
Start, what time you place, like?
Whenever you want it, yeah.
How about I can just type this up to you and Angel and Nelsa if that works, so that we have record of this.
Okay, so you're going to do it.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. I don't do data entry and thinking. same time.
I won't do much thinking to begin with.
It is hard to,
Different brain processes.
it is hard to
Like,
vote.
That's
the
right.
round
So you
down, yeah,
want to get, come out and get in, like.
like brain, right brain.
Struggles like things will take, you know? Yeah. Hey, Howard.
That's why I just watched the video.
Okay, Jessica can handle that, that's administrative, we'll move on, next item. Number two, I agree, I don't wanna be in the 10 o'clock.
Simplified district types.
Yeah.
Or
Support.
So to initiate general discussion, everybody who did submit to the form supported the document, I mean, as is, there was a few modifications, no, so just so you know, we're on item number two, simplified district types. As originally presented, everybody supported, economic development did not provide, any considerations, the considerations that were written here. So just for, I guess, at an interest of process, all those in favor that support it, aye. Any opposed? Vincent Torres, as
I'm
stated,
sorry.
just so we know for the record, he already expressed that he will be no all through unless it's to not support the item, right? So we don't have to kind of keep nagging on that. All right, we'll go to the considerations. Beverly Pavone provided a consideration about simplifying the district types, restrict use groups 6 to 9. I'm sorry, in CI and C2 to second floor, separate entrance and buffer zones between upper residential floors and
That's part of another,
same floor
Thing.
units.
they're separate,
Okay, so that was just put in the wrong area, got it.
unless you intended it for it to be there.
why is it? It is there, right?
Yeah, so, restricted groups, this is for the,
Simplified district
For
types.
the district.
yeah, I think because they had something in there regarding oh, that is the other one. When they
Okay.
talk about how many people is in there,
Yeah,
yeah,
Alright, so
okay.
we'll circle back to that if necessary. And then
That's number
remember, we
5.
supported it, I really wouldn't stress the consideration as much as they would stress it on the do not support, right? Just because it's been advised and expressed, you know, constantly that that's usually what they look at, right? That's, I'm sorry, yeah,
EcoDev did not support.
that's correct. As stated, I'm not necessarily gonna take their position into account in us moving, but we will express their considerations. Okay, Jessica Moore stated this is not an insignificant action condensing all commercial uses to 2 categories of use. It's more of a comment, right? Alright, so I don't see considerations for item number 2, we can move on to number 3, small scale production. Alright, now we're gonna get into the flow, this one's a little bit more, it's probably our first one that's a little contentious. Okay,
so this one's allowing manufacturing uses to locate in commercial zones.
yeah,
Most of us don't support this.
Yeah, most don't support.
that's correct.
So that's.
No,
Not,
don't.
most,
okay.
most in, as far as this document, you guys all have access to this document, it's still live, it's still public. You can look at it, if you change it, I promise you will know you changed it. Yes, yes, Ms. Elliott.
So the reason why I supported it was because I do think things like breweries or bakeries could be really great, and that would fall into this category, and obviously things like, you know, printing stores or things that you can't actively use as the public. Like, my concern is the ground floor activation of the public realm. So if we were to support it and then say that would be required that any manufacturing would have a publicly accessible element, then I think it could potentially be a good thing.
Absolutely.
I like what you
Open
said.
discussion.
But I think, and I could be wrong, somebody could like open something and just put a desk there and like you could theoretically walk in and they'll satisfy that requirement and it won't do us any good. Or we could just say, what uses are we okay with this with, and just say we support those uses, but not other ones. Like, I agree with you, like brewery and bakeries, but what I don't support are like high-end flooring companies, tile companies that, you know, don't serve this community, and just because you can walk in and see a showroom, but you're not gonna buy it, I don't think that does us any good either.
From a strategy perspective, relative to policy, being able to incur change with our recommendations, the intention of being more permissive with uses and the collapsing of use categories is, you know, purpose-driven in the policy. The suggestion to make sure that there's a retail component is not included as yet at all. So I think if we were to make that suggestion, even if there are people who abuse it ultimately with desk and shoddy retail practices, it's still
So continue away.
encouraging good faith behavior that.
This is something that's gonna happen in very few communities. So like, this goes back to my argument about one, and like, these small scale stores aren't opening in 90% of Manhattan right now. They're gonna open in 10%. And so I'm not really concerned about what everybody, you know, you're not gonna go do this in Tribeca or Soho where the rents are high. It's gonna be like, we're gonna have a bunch of stores serving the rest of the city. Right, and it makes sense even with, you mentioned the last, so I'm not pointing about it with congestion pricing, about people on certain vehicles that aren't considered cars delivering this all around the city, and then imagine how easy it is to have this stuff being done here as opposed to somewhere else. And so that's where I push back again and say, just because I can walk in and look and say I wanna buy something, doesn't mean that sounds like a loophole that a lot of people are gonna abuse if it was put in that way. That's just my opinion.
My concerns in this is that within these text zoning amendments or changes, that they're gonna be used for the second floor or higher floors. You know, so I'm concerned that within these text changes, that this will open the door for these type of businesses to be on floors from 2 and up and the roof of businesses, because that's part of this text amendment. I'm sitting in my apartment, and I'm like, I'm on the 5th floor, and I'm like, I don't wanna be, even though it might not be my building, it's a next building. And you have this type of business, and you have all these type of uses that can be right across from my living room. You know, so that was my main concerns about that, because in these changes, these businesses and the uses are gonna be changed also. And they also talking about having best commercial on upper floors, past the second floor.
Can I
In these zones.
make a suggestion that we do not support with a modification that requires ground floor publicly accessible space with any production use in a commercial zone and restricts to ground floor?
Or no higher than the second.
So first, the general discussions is to get that sentiment of support and not support, and then I promise we'll have considerations. It does sound even from the report that was given to us from the forum, majority is not in support, sounds most here are not in support.
Okay.
Economic development was not in support. So I do see those who are in support, who've spoken. So if there's no other interest in having further discussion, we can move forward. Those who are in support, yes or no? Yes, you raise, no, I think this one we should raise or not raise, I'm sorry, but good word for us. If you're in support, please raise your hand. Right, if you're not in support, please raise your hand, right? So we're gonna push for not support. And then, yes, Jessica, we can go into adding the considerations.
Do you want me to repeat it
I
and we can
see.
add to it?
Yeah, we have a few already written. I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at
Yeah,
those
yeah.
or if you want to present the one you already wrote.
I mean, yeah,
I'm open.
looking across these, trying to simplify it, but
I agree. I'm
I
not,
don't think
the
we need
ones
to
that
read
are
out loud.
questions, I'm not necessarily, I want more like points and comments, right? So you don't have to acknowledge my point because it's just I'm gonna constantly make that generic statement about authorities having jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But again, that's something that we as a board would have to enforce and police, with our ECHO committee. I did like,
Requiring accessory retail and the other requiring accessory retail, I think is a good recommendation to make.
yes, from Devin Cronshaw, or the one you wrote.
is it accessory retail or is it just publicly accessible? space.
It says add a required accessory retail component for small single production uses in C districts.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Ground floor, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And restricting manufacturing uses to first and second floor.
No. What if we say ground floor and below? Because if it maybe has a basement, then what else goes in basements besides this
Well,
kind of
the
stuff?
C1 overlays might allow for upper floors too.
Right, but it's saying ground floor or below means not the second floor, right?
Correct.
Does that work?
Right.
I agree. It depends on how they
So
decide to
then
give
you,
it
alright,
the
that's
G.
fine.
If they give you the staircase off of the.
Right.
It doesn't matter, she's right, from an architectural
Sorry.
standpoint, the DOB doesn't care about.
I'm used to
what
getting
we
my
call
way at work.
Ground floor is ground floor, that's okay, and I respect, it, you're right.
So my
We
comment,
have to think of it from a builder's perspective as much as DCP will write the zoning text, but DOB is the ones who's gonna enforce and govern it. Yes, Jessica.
my comment was, related to reducing the square footage that they were allowing.
Yeah.
10,000 seems enormous for ground floor
Yeah.
production here. And I suggested to consider reducing the square footage or making for some sort of discretionary review above 3,000 square feet for C1, C2, and 5,000 square feet for, I haven't, those numbers are just coming from,
It's okay.
they're reducing them.
I rather
Right,
something than
significantly.
nothing, and honestly, I highlighted that on my. After your question, I think that consideration is outstanding, unless you wanna modify it.
No, I think the general point is to reduce the scale, as of right.
Do you want me to read it out loud?
I would think it would be healthy, one step at a time, every one. From what I saw, Jessica, Elliot, and Morris, if you differ, consider reducing these square footage or make for discretionary CB review above 3,000 square feet, C1, C2. I think we could write example given, so that way there's not like some sense of undermining the logic there.
Yeah.
Example given of 3,000 square feet, C1-2, and above 5,000 square feet, C4-7.
Okay.
Does that work? Paul?
Yes, yeah, I can read out the full thing.
Please,
Okay,
second, Beth, I promise.
do not support with modification, require ground floor accessory retail with any production use in a commercial zone and restrict use to ground floor and below. And, sorry, it's a run-on sentence, and restrict allowable square footage or require community board review, for example. C1, C2 above 3,000 and C4-7 above 5,000. Square
And I
feet.
promise it's gonna get another pass before it gets put in a resolution, so just in case there's concern to the grammar, even though my generation, we tend to
I'll fix the
copy and paste
grammar.
and use Grammarly these days.
Cheating.
Oh, man, you gotta see the letters I get read, like, who wrote this? Is that good, Morris? I like it. You good with that, Elliot?
Well, Beverly,
I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
I promise you, Beverly, I
okay,
got.
yes, I'm good with it.
Okay, now we can move on. I don't wanna, I'm sorry, guys, I don't wanna create confusion. We'll be here all night.
Yeah, I just want to know whether or not this will apply to all new buildings also, as well as the ones that's already made, right? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, probably everything.
Yeah, applies to everything, okay. Alright, I'm good with everything.
And we, like I said, we got a do not support from Echo, but they gave us no commentary. I don't know if anything was sent email, but I got whatever's in front of us is what we have. Moving along, number 4,
Loading docks.
loading docks. So from consensus, I have 1, 2, I'm gonna count the supports, 3, 4, 5, 6 supports. And 1, 2, 3 non-supports. You guys can go into discussion. And economic development did not support. There is more support than not support
Twice as much
from our
support.
form,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
You guys can do general discussion if you like, now we can move right into the vote.
I think we can vote on this
All
one.
right, support, all those in favor, support. Right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. support wins. There's only 3 of us that can't support it. So the committee will support it.
Do you wanna modify it, given some of these comments?
I'm interested, if you guys always are, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
when we support, I kind of gave you the position that was told us by both our city council and DCP, right? They usually look at when we don't, but we could definitely add considerations, so we can present that to our fellow board members.
Maybe the CB review is the sprinkle we put across those things.
You know what, it's good to actually have the considerations,
Yeah.
because when
Yeah.
economic development starts debating at full board
Yeah.
about that, but we didn't.
Right,
support it,
exactly, yeah.
well, then I have something to contend with.
I also think, reduction in scale or capacity are effective, consistent comments that we make. I think that there are many, of these items that could do with a consideration for,
Agree.
and you can target scale and have effect. A comment that I added relative to this one is not just CB review, but that buildings over a certain square footage should have a waste plan. It's something outside of DCP's purview, but that zero waste efforts are underway, and I don't know if this is an appropriate place, it kind of kicks the can to someone else, but it's important to mention. I think if loading docks are going away.
Yeah, again,
Waste
I'm with the board, I mean, I'm always gonna support my committee, so you guys supported, I did it, and that was wise, because I was concerned that as they start in our district with the loading docks being manipulated and us not having, an opportunity to opine or be a part of the discussion, then we'll end up with a lot of the, what do they call the parking illegally in the street? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, I think-
Throughout the presentation.
Yeah, this would be less loading docks, so less impact on the parking if we did support it.
Yeah,
Right.
because they're not requiring as many loading
Right,
docks.
so there would be more parking, because there
That's
would be
why I
less curb
supported
cut
it,
for
yeah.
kids.
It
Yeah,
will be
You give
more
crap about
parking.
More-
Yeah, because they're saying like where you might have needed 2 loading docks in the past, you could get just 1. Like there was like that life science building, and because they changed the use, they had to add another loading dock, even though there was like already one there, just because of some bullshit rule. So that would technically be less parking, because now you'd have an extra loading dock. This is actually, to support it is to say less loading docks, more
Yeah.
parking.
So
It's a
my
little
logic-
weird.
I was definitely open from a design perspective, the practicality is those buildings are gonna need deliveries,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And those trucks will be in,
That's a fair point too.
so I do love Jessica's sentiment, because I did make that statement that I think that it should be taken into consideration during your and or, even as a bright review, I don't know if that's under the purview of the zoning text, but I like the term that she used, which is pretty much just ensuring that we have an opportunity to have a conversation with the developer.
So the other thing, when you take away a loading dock, it affects not just deliveries, but also then waste. So I think there's an opportunity here to make a statement, buildings over a certain square footage should have, some sort of regulated waste plan that ensures, because they are not building a loading dock, they aren't going to just pile the trash on the street.
My concerns with that is with the life science building, especially when we just had it, so. And the idea that they're taking away a lot of parking spaces anyway for other type of vehicles, for bikes and whatever else they take away parking, we're losing a lot of parking spaces. We don't have a lot of garages that's in the neighborhood. That's probably won't be affordable to people that needs them. So my concern, especially with the life sciences, is that if they put trash out, I don't want, depending on what type of life science is at that building. And the concerns I had regarding the zoning that they have for, I forget, it's a medical zoning that they get, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what type of laboratory it is, hasn't been considered whatsoever. Because we, even with the one on 20, Third Avenue, we don't know who the
Tenants gonna be.
tenant is gonna be.
Yep.
So we don't know what type of designation, they would give that laboratory as mildly not worried about it, to number 4, where, you know, we have things that's pathogens that can come out, and you only have one loading dock. Where's that, we wanna put that out on the street?
Right, I think they're related, but I think the life sciences is a separate
Yeah,
conversation.
I love I think Jessica Morris hit it on the head to, I guess, to alleviate a little bit of your concern, experience in the world of construction and, medical specifically, hazardous waste has its own world.
Okay.
You're not dumping blood and or bioorganismic pathogens on the sidewalk for it to be picked up by sanitation. It is so illegal, it's ridiculous, like, and no, whatever they're doing in that building, whatever next plague they're creating or whatever, they have no choice and no opportunity to violate the health code on that.
That's
They'll
true.
shut their building down, outside of the city regulation, that's a state mandate. Yes, Jessica Morris, I think, I'm sorry, Elliot, Morris did have some of the verbiage there.
I think I got it, but as I wrote it, which is why I'm raising my hand,
Yeah.
I feel like it's conflicting with itself. So if we're supporting a modification to remove the requirement of the births with existing buildings, with the modification that community boards are, you know, to review and vote on the application of reduced requirement for loading births, it's kind of like redundant, right? Like, I feel like we're either supporting or we're not supporting it. But happy to include it with redundancy
I
if that's
think
what
we
we
should
want to do.
include it in the interest of advocacy.
Okay, that sounds good.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're supposed to
It
provide
has a,
Is
I
the
don't-
wording okay?
I love it, I would love, Morris's opinion, so she presented the logic.
Well, she's not here,
She
so.
stepped out, right? She came back, I don't know if she cut out.
She left her stuff, so.
Yeah, I mean, we could move on, I think we're not gonna change our position.
Okay,
I would love for a do not support, but then that would be me being dictatorial, so I'm not gonna do that. Number 5, upper floor commercial, yeah.
All right, turn the page.
Let's get it going, man. We got 1 out of 5 to go. Upper floor commercial. So I got 1,
Guys, you
2,
that?
yeah.
3, 4, 5 supports, 6 supports. So majority supports. I got 1, 2, 3 do not supports. And everyone here supported it. That's sitting here. Except for Beverly Pamon. So how do we want to move forward? Support, not support?
Take it to the vote.
We'll
Oh,
do,
right, I still got half plus 1. Oh, there it is. I still want to make sure I have this form. We're gonna go back to the other item, Jessica,
Yeah.
Morris, just to make sure the language is sufficient.
Yeah,
but
just-
we're gonna stick to this item number 5. It seems that majority supports over the minority that doesn't support, myself included. So all those who support, raise your hand. All those that do not support, I have 2, support majority rules. So next, moving forward. Since most support, I don't necessarily have to interest my consideration, because mine is a generic one, which is always saying that the board have an opportunity to be a part of the process. But I will jump to economic development. This would inevitably lead to many more disruptions for residents both in the building where the commercial spaces are located and those in neighboring buildings who have no protections built in. A lot of these comments with that, this is the part that's interesting about the 40 pages. A lot of these concerns about affecting quality of life was written to DCP and they answered it extensively. I don't think economic development had the opportunity to read it as much as some of us didn't. Because, it was 40 pages given to us last Tuesday. But I'm not objective in ever adding considerations that the board brings up, so. I'm sorry, I just have to finish reading it out. So have no protections built in. Furthermore, the exemption for businesses with fewer than 75 person capacity is too broad. The issue isn't size, it's disruption, and a small business can easily be significantly disrupted by residents.
the wrong category for that.
Who
again.
understood? So let's keep going. I trust my committee. So Beverly Pavone statement was C1, C2, C3, no, C1, C2, C4, C6. Up to second floor buffer zones, 2 residential, I think this is one you wrote before, no?
Yeah, I think that. Other one.
All right, that got in the wrong spot.
So this only applies to C1 and C2,
No
right?
comments.
This,
Right,
this is up to C1s and C2.
Yeah.
I think there's like confusion though, that these things are gonna go into place and there's gonna be no like checking in, like, I'm gonna go off topic here, like even the housing occupations having, like, there's still gonna be rules that people have to follow. I think there's like this misconception that if these things get implemented, it's gonna be like the Wild West, like,
right.
you're not gonna just be able to put something on the second floor and be like, you're gonna have to follow the same rules that you would do if you put it on the first floor.
Right.
So I think there is that like notion that like, oh, they're approving this with no oversight, like,
Right.
that's not I'm pretty sure that's not happening.
You have to have fire separations
Right,
between
all
a,
kinds of
a
things.
space like this and a residence.
Soundproofing,
Yeah.
like, you're not putting a nightclub on the second floor in like a building that has 10 apartments on the, what?
But they can.
They can
see-
do it now, they got house party already.
I don't think they can. We'd have to look, if you lived in a building like that's 10 stories with 10 apartments on each floor, I don't think this is saying somebody could take one apartment and turn it into a business. This is like, that we already have buildings that have second floor
Right.
commercial. I think they're just saying to broaden that, which is already being done. The only concern I think that makes sense is like, you're taking housing away, right? That could be a potential issue.
But they also put in what they had you to. What is it called? Simplify the district types. For C1 and C2 was separate and then C4 had, now all that is, everything that's C4 to 6 is now incorporated that can be in all.
But it's not, C4 through 6 is not the same as C1 and 2.
Right, this is only for those two.
So even with them simplifying the district types,
It was-
that wouldn't be a problem?
No, I don't think so.
And like, in order to include a second floor, like retail space, you'd have to have planned egress to get the right amount of people out, the right amount of exits, like, it would be a whole, like, authority having jurisdiction review process of how those spaces relate to everything else. And to the point of it taking up housing, I think George maybe went a little bit overboard on his, statement on that, and I would tend to agree with Angel that, I don't think if you're renting a commercial space, a retail space, when would you ever go to the second floor as your first option? Or when,
No, you would.
you would always want the ground floor, and we already have so much ground floor.
I don't think this is gonna, yeah, I agree with you,
Yeah.
especially in this community, I don't foresee this being a big issue.
At least one business that I know that's on second floor commercial, and that's on 104th Street in Lexington, where it's a beauty parlor.
Right. I
So
remember.
it's something that we do have some pockets,
Yeah, we
not
do.
many.
Even 116, there's, we have like
Right.
Yeah.
laundromats, and then there's like, the thing is, I would argue in this neighborhood, and as a landlord, if I had a building like that, I'd actually rather convert it back to residential. It's actually easier to rent apartments here, and the money you'd get for second floor commercial is not even sometimes what you would get to
Less.
rent to somebody,
Yeah.
so,
May I also say, the separation, the building separation and the apartment building review for new buildings will require all of those egress things. Any significant retrofit or use change, if you were going from, residential use to a nightclub, you would have to then make really significant changes to your building that would require DOB review.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna be able to do it without saying that you're gonna do it right.
yeah, that's,
I
right,
love
the
it.
same way you do anything
I
now.
love my buildings here because the reality is that one of the first documents that gotta get submitted when I renovate a building is a tenant protection plan. And I highly doubt that when I let the tenants in that building know that I'm gonna go build, something that's gonna affect their quality of life, that they won't rally to the city. People make 311 calls and stop my jobs. I believe it, despite your popular belief, 311 works.
Yeah,
Oh,
which is why we should be calling it more often.
Yes, so I don't see any reason to stress this any further. We can have, further, if someone of you would like to reach out to Mark, I think that would be great just to bring them in, so that way we don't have a full in-depth conversation
May I
at,
suggest this,
or at full board.
his comment is under the wrong.
I agree.
It
I
should be under
agree.
the home occupations number 11, so maybe we'll consider the comment under number 11.
Possibly.
We'll just copy and paste. Oh, there's more.
All right,
So,
number
number
six.
6. Oh, wait, let's go back real quick
So
to
is
4.
Oh, yeah, so the
So
verbiage,
number 5 is support with no consideration.
right.
All
And
right, would you like to read?
Yeah.
How we wrote it out, Morris? We just wanted to ensure that we got the proper language.
yeah, so we said it's a little redundant, but support with modification, community boards to review and vote on application of reduced requirement for loading berths for existing buildings.
No problem.
Excellent. Moving to item number 6. Use terms, so majority supported.
Agree.
And
No comments.
No
no
comments.
comments.
Support,
And even see, ironically, even and economic development supported. So, Mr. Torres, are you still not supporting? Okay, so we got support with no comment there. Yes, and Beverly, we all feel the same about housing, I promise.
yes.
And I hope that the housing chair is ready, as I tried my hardest to prepare Echo, so. I highly expect that housing will be proactive on this side. And I'll make that, and I will make that.
This next
public.
one affects housing too.
Yeah. So, urban
Oh, urban
agriculture.
Wait, what, where we at?
Right,
Did
Okay,
we, do we have to vote or?
They're trying to get into this, man.
I think he went home.
Trying to reduce his blood pressure.
No, well, God bless, we're not having him scribe all of this, which is great on our part, thank you, to everyone for your efforts. So I'll count the supports, 1 support, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Before we vote, can I explain why I do not support?
Yeah, 1 second, 5 out of the 9 supported it, and
Let me change your mind.
economic.
I love the comment here.
Economic development
Move
supported
my
it.
ultimate.
So, yes,
But that was for agriculture.
Elliot.
The reason why I did not support was specifically one comment that George James noted, which was that you are allowed to build a larger building for agricultural use than you could build
Yes.
a residential building, which I think is not okay.
Right.
So I did not support it for that reason alone, and I think that we could modify it to say that, you know, we would reduce the FAR for agricultural uses to be less than the allowable residential FAR. And, you know,
Right.
but if you all want to support it and make that comment, we can do that as well.
That's what I did. I
I
put
like that comment.
support, I said support, but because of the bulk,
Yeah,
that it should reflect the surrounding buildings, the size of the building, so I guess it's basically.
Yeah, it's the same thing, yeah.
About the same thing. My other concern was, that George said with the marijuana. So I wasn't sure if the OCB, the Office of
cannabis management.
Management would.
You
be
can't
covering
grow.
them.
Yeah, that's on like my committee. We don't do the licenses for that. It's only retail, but you can't open a marijuana, agricultural farm without a license. That would be total. That goes back to my point of kind of about the second floor commercial, meaning these things aren't gonna just happen because we vote on this. You'd still need to go get a license from OCM.
They got a lot of agriculture guys right now.
No, you know what, that's a good point to make, because is it gonna hold hostage to logic and reason? Because people
That's
perform
true.
illegal action.
Yeah,
There's nothing new, there's kilos of heroin all over this district, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing new, right? But the reality is, because that was honestly, it's a good point you made even clarifying that, because that's hands down my biggest concern. That is
And that's right, I was
personally.
Echo's concerned too. They-
Well, look, I'll say this, right? There might be reasoning why they're putting this in. Like, take OCM, for example, right now. You have a lot of these farms upstate that are growing stuff. One problem is they gave those licenses quicker than they gave dispensary licenses, so they have all this product they can't sell.
Right.
But then even distribution, like the logic of it, right? Like now, these stores don't wanna carry too much. Maybe they don't wanna get robbed. They don't wanna have a lot. Now you have everything being grown upstate, being sent in. You can't do as many deliveries. There is a logic to having some of this in the city if you wanna support what OCM is trying to do. And my reason for maybe supporting what OCM is trying to do goes to kind of what you just said, right? There's kilos of heroin all around the neighborhood, there's real drug dealing, and then on a less scary level, there's a million illegal smoke shops.
Mhm.
And I keep banging the drum at my committee that the only way to combat that is to start allowing licensed people open, because they are gonna be the greatest opponent against the illegal smoke shops. And I'm gonna tell you something, you don't go get a license from the government and sell it to underage kids, you just don't do that, it doesn't happen. I'm
Especially
chairing,
that part, you know.
I'm chairing license and permits committee, I can't tell you in like my 10 years if I can name one place that we've ever said, oh, they were serving minors. So I think that sometimes it seems like something is invasive and bad, but in actuality,
Regulated.
it's regulated and it might do more good. I'm not saying there should be growers on every block, but it might not be the worst thing in the world, you know, if it's done correctly, is all I'm saying.
No, you're teaching, and I'm so against it, but you're opening.
And I see the reasons against it
But
too.
you're opening the line. you know, that's the point of discussion. Yes,
Can
Maura.
I also shift the conversation away from highly lucrative forms of
There you go,
agriculture?
there you go.
And suggest that from, we've passed recently City of Yes for carbon neutrality. And I think there's a whole, kind of capacity for carbon reduction, through local agriculture and energy generation. That could, I know that sounds really futuristic and crazy, but this type of hyper local, food production and, a very, if you have a vertical farm, it's a different kind of water use intensity, energy use intensity. So that it's bigger than, you would be able to allow, for housing production. It may, serve, a sort of a micro district, from, a sort of a smart grid type of thing. And does that happen in East Harlem? Probably not. Could it happen in the Bronx? Very really, yes. And I think that that's where, you get the sort of economics, would tell the story here, and it's, potentially highly unlikely. So, I think the guess is for progress. And again, I think that's, a counter position to, yes, being a strict producer for this is good for us.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't saying it for that reason, I was also saying, cause I know that that was the main pushback, like
Yeah.
even this comment in the sheet we were given, where I agree with what you're saying, it's more than marijuana, but I think the way you're saying it, nobody would have a real problem with that. What I'm just trying to say is, let's talk about what the problem is, so we
Right.
can maybe get it to, because I agree with you, there is a lot more, and it could be a good thing, you know.
I agree. So I hear majority support with consideration.
That's fine, yeah.
All those in favor for support? Yay, minus Mr. Torres. I didn't see your hand. Or your hand.
Support of, yeah, I do not
Not
support.
supporting it. Excellent, just wanted to be public, so those know. And, do we wanna go into considerations? I will order, Elliot, you
Yeah,
already wrote it.
I
think
did.
It's good enough for us to present it.
Well, it's the
Yeah.
only, I just added, because I looked at the rest of the comments, and I think Devon's comment about the required accessory retail component again is very helpful, so. Just to read what I've written, require ground floor accessory retail for urban agriculture use in a commercial zone. Reduce allowable FAR for agricultural uses to be less than allowable FAR for residential uses.
Excellent.
Anything else?
I think we should add the mantra of as you're expressing, the elephant in the room that everybody's worried about, and that's the illegal.
Restrict,
I don't
Cannabis.
necessarily want to stress it to marijuana, but just, illegal mind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Although they do use the leaves for food.
Or controlled substances.
okay, restrict
Yeah.
growth,
Controlled substances.
agricultural uses involving controlled substances.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, if we want, we can do the research and get the class.
meth labs.
Yeah.
That's for, I forgot. what-
Mushrooms.
The flower, but they don't do anything with the leaves.
There's pharmacies in every corner, and they mix your drugs there,
Oh, okay.
every hospital,
Pharmacy might be the one.
yeah.
Apple leaves, yeah, they do.
Very strong fiber.
Yeah.
What's that,
They have leaves.
I've heard, that's an interesting, you gotta read the history on that. The guys that created paper, I think there's a whole interesting story on that. It's very interesting. I don't know how factual it is. Moving on to number 8, right? I
Yep.
love what you said, Jessica. I think you got it. I'm not really stuck on, just for your own edification, I'm not stuck on it always having to be one sentence or paragraph.
Yeah,
It can be bullets. Right? So if they don't
yeah, these can
marry,
be bullets, yeah.
exactly. They don't marry when bullets hit, because I have to redo this before full board anyhow. Life sciences, number 8, we're almost there, 8 down, 10 to go.
It'll sound like.
Start moving and pushing along. All right, so
Oh.
life sciences, majority support.
That's one, I keep reading.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Here we
So-
go.
The majority supports life sciences, so I think we could just pretty much move to that, right? Is
Yeah.
everybody in favor to support life sciences? Yay? No?
Yay.
With modification.
I got it.
Well, yeah, we always have a mod possible, really. Cause I do see a 3-page essay over here. By someone.
who wrote that?
Yeah, see, again, Morris, you don't have to really, I mean, Elliot, forgive me, ladies.
Thank you.
Elliot, you don't have to stress my comment all the time, it's always gonna be that generic, give the
Yeah.
CB the opportunity
Well,
to rein it in, right?
I think,
I think Mark wrote some interesting
and
stuff.
Jessica Morris noted that at the meeting last week as well, which I think I added to the note I sent
What's
her.
that piece, I'm sorry.
That, community board review to approve life
Yeah,
sciences and
yeah, so we
resolution.
add that, we should be good.
Okay,
Beverly Pavone statement, residential zones are exempt to having life sciences, biosafety levels should be posted. And conflict with city of yes, so the city of yes, we talked about housing is separate. Biosafety, I don't know if I clarified that to you, Department of Health regulates life sciences in a
Yeah.
whole nother way.
But what George brought up is that there's no, and that list is very secret and
Yeah,
there's
That's
no,
true.
so there's,
We never
even if you
know.
ask, we're not told what hazards may
Right.
exist. So to have in some sort of notification, if there's a certain level of risk, I think that
It should be posted, we should know.
Well, that's the law, if it does hit a certain biosafety level, like if you want an example, you guys can walk up to Cornell. They definitely have to post it, I think after level 1 or 3.
posted publicly.
Yeah, but they're not gonna tell you.
Tell you what it
know What
is.
they're doing, they won't do that because they don't wanna create mass
So
hysteria.
we'll say biosafety hazard. level.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, look, if we wanna I'm all for doing, what's the committee, human services work? I would love to, but I think this is relevant to zoning, and if the Department of Health is a problem in who they're issuing, these permit applications to, then that's a whole nother debate.
The thing,
Who is
the thing that came up in the meeting was that there's no, corresponding distinction in zoning to those different types of hazardous activity.
Right.
And that's, so George had suggested, and it seemed like a good, point to put forward, is that there be,
A restriction or what type
a
of virus.
sort of referral to, yeah, a restriction level wise.
Right.
Yeah, where life science is up to hazard level, I don't know, if it's A or H, right? Up to hazard level E can be, cited without, whatever. But right now, there's no restriction, it's just any life science can cite wherever, and while they have to register with the Department of Health,
We won't.
we don't know about it until it's happened. So I think that's right now, it would be as of right to.
I think
this new.
like clarification we wanna add to it, maybe. It's community boards to review and vote on recommendation for life science uses and require public transparency on life safety categorization and type.
And
It's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
what are the levels?
But aren't they
I don't
changing it?
wanna-
I
I don't wanna represent the DOH like I said,
I
I
feel
built
like
these
we'd be vague in
spaces
case they
and
change
I'm
it.
very familiar with Jayco's process, but again, if we're concerned, address the consideration for the concern and
Well-
we'll write it. I think Mark kind of captured it. I don't know if that helps. Does the DO, not the question parts, but per our land use consultant, the Department of Health and Mental Health has expressed concern about potential accidents in this kind of lab.
Yeah,
Again, that's theoretical hypothetical, would allow to be located in residential neighborhoods. You got Mount Sinai, I promise you, you have no idea what they do over there. I built them spaces, I can show them to you. Go to Annenberg 26th floor if you're ever interested. Shouldn't the DCP and the Department of Health, Mental Health be in total agreement about the safety of the proposed being, and this is what I'm saying, they're mixing land use
yeah.
with DOH, and DOH is human services, so I think there's a concern there that might be a little bit outside the purview of this zoning text, but I don't wanna undermine if there's a concern that we want to address. I think we should just be specific. What would you like to write, to that magnitude, Beverly or?
Specific
or
language.
Morris?
I disagree that it's, sort of DOH, because when they build these buildings, they have some type of idea of what.
Well, they know what they're gonna be doing, right?
Right.
They're not telling us.
They're not telling us, and
They have to get DOH approval before they can designate it as a hospital life science.
True.
But their concern makes no sense. If that concern is true, what he wrote, and I can't say it is or isn't, but if it is, if they're concerned, then why would they approve them in places they're concerned? Even if the zoning changed, they don't have to put them in areas of concern. So like, that doesn't really make any sense. If I'm Department of Health and I'm like, oh, you're rezoning and you're making it where we could put these in places where we shouldn't, then they shouldn't put them there. Like, why would they do that?
Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I just wanted to add one clarification point to that. So it's not the Department of Health that will, approve or not. The Department of Health just gets a notification that Life and Science building has been approved. I, request a clarification because this question came out last week. So if it was to be added into resolution, we recommended that it was the state who's the actual, entity that will approve a Life and Science building that gets or sends a notification to the Department of Health. This change is essentially allowing or, updating the definition for Life and Science into one category alone. And after this Life and Science building go through, get a permit and prove that they don't have any significant impact up to the environmental standards, they will be able to be located and allow districts that are, I believe, C2 to C6. But if they're not, able to meet that criteria, they could apply for the special permit and be able to, locate in this location. I think that was something that I really wanted to clarify, that I didn't do a good job last week. But that's the special permit applicability to those, Life and Science buildings that will have some type of, definition. I was told that the dry and wet definitions that I was told a couple of months ago, that the city is moving away from that. And now we're moving into a commercial type of Life and Science and a research evaluated type of science. I haven't, getting the whole details on those. But that is the case. So essentially, there is a special permit for those type of uses that will need more bulk, and they will have some significant environmental impacts. So just to add that clarification.
And those would only be in commercial districts.
They are allowed in manufacturing districts, but they could be located in commercial districts if they pass the special permit provision, which is a ULURP requirement. So it will go through the community board, it will go to city council, it will go through the city planning commission. Similar to what is happening in the existing special permit that we have right now. That is the cancer blood center. That was a little controversial project for being located in the area there was. I also want to say that the special permit is not just for those buildings that have an environmental impact. If you want higher bulk, be able to use a community facility, FAR right in the commercial FAR, you could apply for the special permit as well. But, this will be part of the application for the Life and Science building.
Should we just keep it simple then and say community boards to review?
That's good, yep.
Does everyone agree?
If you want to require a special permit for all of them, that's totally fine. I think, we are making further modifications on this. We're hearing a lot from community boards, so I'm actually very happy to hear your discussions and your recommendations. I'll shut up now.
Appreciate it. We wanna
Thank you,
move,
Jose.
we're gonna get out of here. Thank you.
We're all gonna feel sick.
I'm already feeling sick. I
That's it.
know, those chocolates
You're
are.
strong, alright? Chocolate makes you strong.
I agree with that.
Alright, so we got a position?
Yeah, I just have,
I trust your verbiage.
it just says community boards to review and vote on recommendation for life science uses.
Excellent. Ensure, write a word like ensure.
We're
Oh,
experts.
yeah.
So, you know, them, oh, it's an option? No, it's not an option. But yeah, I'm not gonna debate that too much. Like I said, I built, that was probably 10 years of my career.
So much as just a notification, right? Right now, we're.
So it's just.
It takes a lot for they have to prove to the Department of Health, like in the EOH. I mean, it's just like, yeah, I built these spaces, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, if I build a building next to, if I do any construction next to it, just as the MTA is an example. The DOB will not give me a permit approval to proceed with the building unless there's, some letter of no impact, right? The same is to be said for use. If you submit the use of the space to the DOB, they're gonna say, okay, get me the letter from the authority having jurisdiction, which is the DOB. I'm not gonna debate with ECB about it, but this is my experience, right? And I built, like I said, and if you guys want to show you something, Mr. Becker can tell you a lot of the facility space I did in Mount Sinai. Make sure you constantly, that's why Brad Breckstrom his job function exists. Because he has to constantly come to the community board to advise and opine on his approvals. And then he just goes to DOH and says, I talked to them, and yes, I agree. You don't necessarily get an involvement, but I can tell you then that DOH holds whoever's that end user and into an entire differently standard.
But also, what about that is supposed to be within, a certain area of what's it, compass?
Better, if you don't mind, I think we can speculate more on it, but I want to keep going.
Yeah, I wanna keep
'cause it's
moving.
already good.
We're only on number 9, we're
Yeah.
less than halfway
Less
there.
than halfway, nightlife.
Yeah.
Write it down and let's do the homework. We got speculation
We don't have-
hypotheses, conspiracies, I love them. I
Oversaturated.
just don't think it's probably the best bet here. I'm giving you experience, I'm not guessing. Yeah, I'm building.
Nightlife, support.
Support.
So nightlife, of course. Why are the young people not supporting it? I guess I'm the young man here.
Malik would be upset if I didn't support this.
We desperately need it.
4, 5, 6, 7. I guess we got no choice.
But I think it definitely
And
needs a.
nightlife was supported by economic development, so majority supports. So we'll push support, and I guess, of course, I see the dissertations on the considerations, we'll get to that. So all those in favor to support? Aye. Those who do not support, we know Mr. Torres, anybody else not supported? Okay, moving forward, support rule is the majority. So we have a lot of commentary there. Thank you. I see you, Jessica, already digested the marks, so I won't look at that. Elliot, you got your statement. You don't necessarily have to stress mine, but I constantly keep saying, especially if somebody's gonna open up a club next to Nelson's apartment, I think that they should come to license and permits and ask for permission to build next to Nelson's apartment before they legalize that nightclub, or especially in their Beverly's basement without her permission.
I don't mind the basement, it's the upper floor past too.
I mean, and I can't speak, I don't know how the club and the partying life works in Harlem, but I very rarely see anything of that nature go in front of license and permits, so. I think we deal with the 311 calls when it becomes a public safety issue. But yeah, I think Mark wrote a very detailed message, really, we can consolidate that. What I got from committee, from Echo, it says more oversight of nightlife, but that's not a DCP item, this isn't zoning. I wanna keep it to zoning, we don't mind. We can make a reference to the authorities having jurisdiction, but I'm not gonna tell DCP to do something that I know they're not going to do.
Okay.
And it's already, yes, some of us that are aware know that it's already regulated.
You're not gonna get a you're gonna need a liquor license for most nightlife.
Yeah.
Right, so there, I just don't understand how we're still asking these questions, not us here,
Yeah,
but.
yeah, well, some people aren't familiar with the process and we have to ensure them that there's existing regulations.
Absolutely.
And if they think a lot about it, well, when they go to build a club in Nilson's apartment without her permission, after hostage taking her family,
Uh-huh.
they still are gonna need, I'm sorry to be dramatic, but let me
That's
be
okay.
extreme, right? And they are still gonna need the liquor license and, they're coming
She's
before
gonna
the
call
board.
311.
Yeah.
That's
Get it
it.
gone.
That's it.
Yeah. No.
What about lowering the tax?
Yes, Ms.
I
Elliott.
just wanted, the point that stuck out for me from George James, I always get his name wrong, proceed, y'all, can we have a discussion together? Was the occupant allowances, so it said that 200 occupants were allowed, but it doesn't give any, like, clarification of how big that space is, and I feel like at least when we do buildings and design,
Don't you
the
need a-
square footage dictates the amount of occupants.
Exactly.
And then there's no restriction on occupants for the like higher,
But don't you need a public assembly permit if it's over like 75 people?
I don't do any work in the city, so.
Yeah, so you would,
Nancy
I don't,
does.
you'd still need a
And
public assembly. permit.
the fire department will show.
And they wouldn't give you one if, cause I hear your concern, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't give you a public assembly permit if the space wasn't big enough to accommodate people.
And they would need my architects, don't they need that, to be able to get out of the space?
Yeah, egress, yeah.
Egress and all that kind. I mean, I'm gonna.
So there are
keep banging
existing
that
rules
drum.
and
All
regulations.
those things will still be required.
Right.
It's just going to allow you to do that, go through all of those processes.
If you meet.
If you meet these requirements and you don't have more than 200 people.
Right.
So if your space is somehow bigger and would accommodate, in your place of assembly, 250 people, well, then, you would reduce the size of the kind of club area through some, that's what the design process would do to make sure that you were in compliance in order to be able to, support the use that was desired. So I think it's, those regulations they don't go away because we're allowing this to happen. But it can happen as of right, as long as you
Are within those.
comply, yeah.
So I think there was a comment about require nightclubs to abide by, is it SLA procedures for the community board to weigh in on hours and noise? Is that?
Yeah, because, I mean, if they were going to have a liquor license, they would have to come to us and then there's a stipulation form. And SLA takes that like seriously. So if they agree to hours or whatever with us and they sign that and they're not doing it,
Yeah,
they're at risk of at least being called in and maybe losing their license.
so do we want to include that in the modification? And then do we also want to,
That's flattering to you.
do we want to also have them revise the unlimited occupancy?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So in totality, it says revise unlimited occupancy for C3 to C8 and M districts. Require nightclubs to abide by SLA procedures for community board to weigh in on hours and noise. Does that summarize it okay, or?
Sounds good to me.
You see this smile?
Okay, all right, should we move on?
You see the frown, I promise you.
Yeah, everything you've said so far has been good. Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah, I mean, look, DCP, you hearing all this, right? Doing the
We're
work.
doing work.
Number 10, amusement. I mean, majority support.
Dave and Buster.
We have like
There we
one
go.
person.
Just kidding.
And that's probably because of George James, Coney Island, and Extreme Theory, that's not coming here.
Right.
Right, there's not gonna be a roller coaster going through
I
town.
wish.
That was
I think Dave & Buster's a target.
And some people get off and go shopping in the neighborhood.
All right, and honestly, I don't see any comments, so we're gonna move forward. So that number 10 is full support.
Yep.
With the exception of Mr. Torres, and we already know, and economic development supported it. Outside of, like I said, to shy
Yeah.
away. I know
Yeah.
Beverly, that's a generic statement about the city of, yes, housing, which we're all aware of. Next, number 11, we're almost there, guys. Let's beat my time. I said we'll be here till 11. It looks like we're gonna do better than that.
9 o'clock.
Home occupation. Okay, so let me count this one off. I'll just do supports. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 supports out of 9.
That's close.
Very close.
It could have
1,
supports,
2, and it goes, so
Oh,
we'll
of
say,
course
there
they
you
do.
go, 6 out of 9, 6 out of 10.
but I think the do not supports here, and some of the supports have some requests.
Absolutely, we'll definitely entertain the considerations. Always, I just wanna get that first step off, right? Where I see majority supports, I mean, but we could definitely do a show of hands vote. All those in favor to support home occupations, please raise your hand if you do not mind. Right? That's 3, I guess we lose. Do not support wins. Next, let's go. Listen, I can take it, Or should I say, we can take it, it is democracy.
Well,
Streetscape.
So do not support, now let's jump into the considerations. Maybe a little bit of discussion, if those of us are a little, if you wanna debate why you
Yeah.
think we should support it.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I'd rather know the people who, if they don't mind, who don't support it, why?
Well, speaking for me, I know a couple of home occupations already that actually err on the side of, instead of running the way it should, do a lot of noise and complaints and traffic, and we're talking about maybe with 1 employee or 2 employees. And during the day, their hours extend later than what they say, people come in at all hours. And then with the fact that it can increase to what, 49%, and you can have 3 more people. And then there's really not talking about restriction of hours, it was talking about no signage. It would be good for, if there's a business on my floor, right, it would be good for me to know what's there, so as I see people I don't know coming in. Depending if there's a daycare above me and I hear running around at 11 o'clock because they're 24-hour daycare and I can't sleep.
mhm.
So I think that at the very least, if something like that is done, the operator and the building itself should have a responsibility to tell at least the residents, it should be posted transparently, but at least for the people that are on that floor, that there's a business being operated there, the type of business, who does the oversight, if there's complaints, where do they complain? And what does the residents on that floor, what are their options, should they not be a good neighbor?
Could I love that. I'm gonna read out, I've read it probably too many times at this point, but Mark's statement, I think, kind of captures a lot of the concerns that unfortunately aren't as technical, but they're legitimate concerns, right? Could support if proposal is modified to include protections for residents from expanded home businesses, including safeguards against increased traffic, noise, odors, etc. Current enforcement of existing regulations is uneven at best, and with larger home businesses allowed, the disruption to other residents will grow too. Regulation enforcement needs to increase proportionally and be built into any proposal. This would inevitably lead to many more disruptions for residents, both in the building where the commercial spaces are located and those in neighboring buildings who have no protections built in. Furthermore, the exemption for businesses with fewer than 75 persons capacity is too broad. The issue isn't size, it's disruption, and a small business can easily be significantly disruptive to residents. I mean, if Kai Sanat moves into one of our buildings, yeah, and he starts YouTubing, I promise you'll have 14th Street in your
I don't
house.
even know who that is.
And it also depends, like in my.
He's
building-
I'm sorry, the ride that happened on 14th Street.
Mhm.
with-
Oh,
with the
okay.
camera, that-
Oh my
that-
God.
That was a remote, small business.
Yikes.
Right? But, it is, but that's what happens, right?
I think,
Yeah, influencing, that's probably a little bit more of the concern, is that technology business, where you can end up having you'd be surprised, you go viral, cause Patsy, is, have 1 million people at the door, you ain't a small business no more.
Thank God I'm not a home occupation, but.
Also, when reading this and considering this, I was looking at the zoning text that was modified in 2001 regarding health businesses and massage parlors and gyms, would that be able to be a part of? It's like you just. So
Those are already happening.
And that was already passed, so
Yeah,
that
but
would be.
I guess that's some
included.
concern, right? It's
Like that.
it's us quote unquote legalizing it, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's that concern,
Well, so I think the big
There's a
thing with
trade-off
that
on all
change
of
when it happened, not too long ago, was relative to the noise that, you know, a gym causes and the,
Is it limiting, well,
and the type of activity that could happen.
Yeah.
this is why and I was inclined to go the Vinnie route actually and vote no on everything,
Yeah.
because like, there isn't enough clarity on a lot of these things,
Yeah.
like,
Right, this is. the
instead of
least-
having suggestions, I have questions for
Yeah.
DCP,
Right.
which are what uses are or are not allowed? How is this gonna be regulated? Because another thing people are doing is, they're opening restaurants in their apartments and they're selling food through food apps and they're not subject to health inspections.
Crazy.
So there's another one, right? At the same time, you know, I support people who have an entrepreneurial spirit, right? A lot of people don't have the means to go rent a store and start a business, and then we don't wanna like discourage people from starting businesses. But I'm gonna be honest, it's like, how do we even vote on this? We don't know
I
anything.
know, it's.
And it's a
And
little,
that's why we're being conservative and saying no, right, with these considerations.
well, I guess I'd like us to be able to be more informed before we said anything, and you know,
Yeah.
and like, so I guess actually, we have some people from DCP here right now, right? Could they answer my two
Okay.
questions?
Jose?
What are the regulations and what are the uses and that are and are not allowed for home occupation?
It's a long list.
I don't know if he's still on.
There's a list
It's a-
there?
Yeah, yeah, okay, sorry, yeah, it is,
Okay, do this.
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very long list. You know, it's essentially all of the use groups that are proposed within the districts, up to 8. So use groups 1 through 8 will be allowed home-based businesses, you know, with existing regulations. Sorry?
I'm gonna ask you a more specific question then. We'll make it like an example. Would somebody operating a food service business fall under an acceptable use?
Yeah, there are already.
Okay, and then does Department of Health inspect those, or will they be inspecting those people doing that?
I don't know if this falls under the Department of Health, but it does under. So in order to sell any food or products, you need a license or a permit that is given by the agriculture.
But that's not what I'm asking, because if I'm ordering food for consumption, if I order from a restaurant that has a commercial space, they need to be inspected by the Department of Health. Why should someone cooking behind closed doors in their own house not have to follow the same rules?
I believe they follow, like, I mean, they are only on complaint basis for the Department of Health. But the state has a much more robust, you know, requirement. And I know they're like, I don't know if it's on a quarterly basis, the visits that they do for home businesses, but they are required to have a more, you know, what is it called? Compliance basis. But for the city, it's complaint basis, as we said in the response, because I thought also that they were, you know, routine inspections and inspector, but it's only on complaint basis. So if somebody in the building makes a complaint, they will come to your, you know, home base. Now, you know, we can talk about in length about like the capacity of the city to follow up on those complaints, either DOB, Department of Health, or, you know, NYPD or whatever it is. But I think, you know, that the concern is valid. But what I understand is the state regulates those specifically for food a lot more tighter than they actually do for businesses in regular. But
Well, Okay, yeah, let him finish his thought and then we'll move on to our position. Yeah, finish, Jose. I honestly, I don't need him to answer them.
Yeah, I think
I know
we've
you
had the
guys
chance to
need,
answer
Like
questions.
another, no offense, like training on this, but it's simple. We don't support it.
It's vague,
And
that's
let's find
why.
out considerations because they're vague,
Right.
right? That's my position, right? But I wanna keep us motivated, because we're already up to number 10, but Jose, finish it. Sorry, because we have a lot of cross talking.
That is all, that is all, you know, I think, yeah, you guys got it right, so I'll be here.
Thank you. You want a Q&A again?
No, well, but I also wanna bring up the point that the way we're discussing things here, and we have these questions, the community at large has the
Right.
questions as well.
100%.
So I understand that in the interest of time, we wanna rush through it, but we also have a responsibility, right, to get an answer. So for instance, I know a lot of people who do have restaurant, basically technical restaurants in their home where they cook and people come and they have a cash only business. They don't only have to do app, and that's not regulated. I know people who have beauty parlors that are in their house, that chemicals go through the vents and people and other things that are going on. The people next door, they smell that and and some people get sick, some people are elderly. So when you just think that, you know, and this is just my personal comment, you can broaden the categories, you can make it greater for economics. But when you're doing this in a residential place and you're not giving enough thought to how that business is going to expand, both in traffic, that's a problem. And unfortunately, CB11's history in the community doesn't come out for public sessions to talk about what their concerns are. And so we have to bring that out. So, you know, you're gonna hear from me that I totally agree with what Adem was asking. I'm not quite sure you answered the question, and I'm not gonna belabor the point, but a lot of this is very vague. And we owe it to the people that are here already, and some of us are hostage, right, in their apartments. That something doesn't happen that'll make, as they scrape to pay their rent, that they are not having a bad experience because we're trying to give economic opportunity with now enough safeguards by policing organizations that only come out when there's a complaint, because a lot of people don't complain. They just make do.
Right, especially disenfranchised,
Exactly.
which is mainly in our district, which goes back to the moral of our consensus. We do not support it.
Yep.
We'll provide the considerations. I think Mark hit a lot of the points that we just made. Would we like to add any other points?
You know, I think
The
Mark says
size.
this, but I just wanna say, proportionally, regulation and enforcement for, you know, that is key, that the mechanisms for, regulation reporting, meaning complaints, and the response to those complaints be, you know, supported.
Can we have another consideration? And we go
Always, that's the
into-
point. I'm sorry, if you don't mind, Ro, just to finish with Morris, what about the item require signage? I don't know if it necessarily matters, okay, yeah, so signage,
And to.
because I know those smaller businesses, they tend to just, you know, there isn't that much.
Buyers.
So, signage is great, I think, DCP's position on this is that all of this activity is further regulated by building landlords. So when you have a lower income community, landlords perhaps are going to regulate less than when you have a sort of highfalutin, fancy, you know,
Yeah.
co-op with, you know, a board that, you know, has all of their legal supports, you know, taken care of. I think when you have, there's vulnerability here, and this is going to further increase vulnerability for people in their homes. That affects their health and well-being. So unless those safeguards can be implemented and assured, then that's where the non-support comes from. Is that,
I agree.
how do we say that?
Before we go to Elliot to clarify, Beverly, did you want to make your point?
Yeah, my thing was regarding the size. 49% of the space is very much too large. I agree with the signage. My other point was, is there any way that if you have a small building, like say of 5 units, you don't want at least 4 of them to have home businesses, would it be, you know, that's making that whole place a commercial place.
Wouldn't be a
at that
bad
point,
thing.
you know. So I'm concerned about how many businesses would be in a particular building at one time, which would increase the traffic, the safety, the type of business it is.
Landlord can regulate that.
And I can, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt that that would be, and you can't force the landlord, you know, you call 311.
Through their lease,
Yeah,
what happens with regulated units, what happens with any?
yeah.
Well,
Yes,
and
well-
just, oh,
I'm sorry, you want to finish this discussion on the?
no, I just wanted to say, and then, we're gonna, that 1199, there's, home businesses in there. And a lot of the residents don't know that there's businesses in there. There's no kind of, unless somebody chooses to put up a flyer by the elevator, you don't know, that someone's running, a daycare or anything like that. So not, and they have a co-op board, and, so that doesn't necessarily play, with transparency.
Understood. Jessica,
I just wanna say, I have a home business and makes negative amounts of money. So I'm one of these people and I do not support this just because like all we've been saying about how big it is. So I think unfortunately, the space for requested modification doesn't really allow us to, bring all of that to the table to say that this is too big, that, we would be equally vague in describing how vague it is and it wouldn't have any modification to it. So I think if we just pay attention specifically to the requested modifications here, I heard require notifications to residents for any home business expansion. I also heard require signage for home businesses, but where?
Well, what I'm saying is the residents,
their
at
door.
the very least, the residents should know on their floor that a home business is operating.
So what-
Sometimes a flyer, like they might have a central location.
Okay, so creation or expansion.
Right.
Okay, and then where would the signage be?
Maybe like in the
Mailbox, yeah.
front, like the first floor, like a
Or the
bulletin
mailbox area,
board,
Right,
you know?
bulletin board and maybe on that floor.
on their door.
Or on their door, I like that.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
So because this is
Same.
a zoning text amendment,
Sounds-
Yeah.
and GCP is taking it to building level management. So suggesting that as part of zoning, these building level controls be required, I think they're going to say what's that.
I
Okay,
was agreeing. I
And-
think in the interest of advocacy, though, that's the point.
I agree.
At the bare minimum, we put a point, I don't expect that, I hope none of us expect that we're rewriting.
No,
All right,
yeah,
cool, this
but
is that,
they're
we
listening.
think we're advising,
Yeah.
supporting, and now it's on the record. So that if, we end up with 50 businesses in the project
Yeah.
and the senior citizen decides to come in and complain, we can say that we made our best faith effort
Yeah.
on supporting their quality of life.
so we have currently 2 points, and if I could, I would like to add 2 more, which is that we provide traffic limitations based on the business size, to Nils's point. And then one of the biggest things that concerned me from George's comments were the combination of units in like a co-op or condo situation where, it's almost an unlimited ability to expand a business. So restrict co-op and condo unit combinations for business expansion. Does that,
Right, and traffic ties into like hours, right?
Right.
Because you shouldn't have traffic all the time.
provide traffic and hour limitations? Okay.
There was one other comment that was brought up on the 40-page memo with the questions, and that was about protections for children with home-based businesses.
Oh, yeah.
As a simultaneity, and that potential for, was concerning. There's nothing that can be done essentially, but that's something that this, not that it doesn't exist already, but it would increase that exposure and potential for risk of whatever may happen when you kind of open up your home to business.
So provide protections for children, for home businesses relating to children. How do you say that?
I don't know.
We know there's child protection services that exist already, and I would assume some home occupied business. Again, we don't support it,
Okay,
so I wouldn't get too, we can play with the terminology, but I think that we're concerned, period, with
Right.
the innocence of quality of life, right? Whether it's young, or senior, or, those that can't necessarily, fend for or defend themselves, right?
do you want me to read it in totality?
I trust your
There are 4 points, yeah.
Yeah, 4 points.
Yeah.
We can just go through it all then. And
No, you can do it
Okay.
now, because at the end.
All right, do not support with modification, require notifications to residents for any home businesses, business creation and or expansion. Require signage for all home businesses, unspecific as to where. Provide traffic and hour limitations based on business size. Restrict co-op and condo unit combinations for business expansion. Home business expansion.
And not considering how many businesses is in one particular building?
I think that's kind of hard to, like,
They
cause
can't
like
control
people
it.
like me have a home business and what am I doing? I'm like
Okay.
sending emails,
And it
like
gets
it's
to a
just me.
point like that. That's what I was, why I brought up Kai Sanat. This is his business.
Right.
And if he shows up here right now, there'll be 2 million kids here in like 5 minutes. That's very disruptive, but I think we broadly covered it as much as practically possible, but we do have to understand, as has been expressed, there are existing, and that will be sent to the board, right?
Yeah.
There are existing regulatory agencies and administrative agencies that address the concerns in the, like, especially like the welfare of children, right? That tends to be a
Yeah.
really major issue in this city. And I know this, you know, there's been, that tends to be even a tool that's misused, right? Where people love to call, CPS. And, you know, I have to say, ever since the child a few years ago that passed, they ended up really stepping up their game. So, you know, there's a lot of populations that we have to be concerned with. So I think the more that we express that we want this regulated as much as possible, I think that we capture this broad-based sentiment that exists. Yes, Mr. Rob.
Chair, do you think that with the city of yes housing that's gonna come, this will still be another point that way, maybe where you can clarify, depending on the apartment size and everything, that not too many apartments get taken over because they're businesses, because that's where the housing component is gonna come in, and that's where maybe more of the protections and things like that. Like, I'm not sure how.
I like that thought,
it's presented,
because
But I
it-
think you can carry it over.
I do, that's all I'm concerned about when I'm hearing about splitting and opening up condos, and that gets to a point where, you know, I pay you, I move you out your apartment, take your lease over, and I mean, God only knows where that can go, right?
They do that
But I
now.
think there's a part, that's what I was gonna say, I think there's a part where, yeah, it's rhetoric and they're putting it in the zoning. And then there's actual enforcement that we can't mix, that DCP isn't necessarily purview to.
Does that add or change the wording of anything?
No, I wouldn't add anything, I'm just saying that I think we're gonna have these same discussions in terms of housing, availability and too many businesses. So,
Can you just clarify?
Yeah,
The usage is from 8 to, what was the usage, group that's, it's from these, is it up to 1 to 9? Or what's it?
It's just, so it would be residential. And anyone who has like, I'm a tenant in a rented apartment.
No, the type of businesses.
Oh, it's a long list of, because they're basically removing the prohibited
Right.
businesses. I couldn't tell you because it's so
Oh, okay.
expansive of a list.
Right.
Should we move on?
yes, I don't necessarily have it, unless we're adding. So I hear that we're starting to subtract from our positions at this point. We do not support it, and we listed our considerations. And I promise you, which I love that Ms. Morris just brought up, all those Q and As we submitted.
Yeah.
So it's on record that we have expressed these concerns to DCP.
Streetscape?
Number 12, streetscape. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everybody supports it except Beverly and Vinnie.
And EcoDev.
Any vote, So, majority rules, unless we wanna go for votes.
I just, before, with the support.
Yeah.
That one of the comments Jessica Morris and George brought up in the meeting last month, or last week, Jesus, was that we already have pre-existing special district rules, and this would erase those requirements within those districts, so, and, you know, I think they're important to keep, and Jessica, you had made the comment last time that maybe the modification includes the preservation of existing special districts. Is that something we would be interested in entertaining?
Yeah, before we get to considerations, which I see that as one of yours,
yes.
which we're going to go
Yeah.
to, I wanna get it past the support.
Oh, I thought we said it was.
Yeah,
only-
I believe that,
Okay.
but I have to give the opportunity
Okay,
for
great.
those to
Let's
say
vote.
name outside of Vinnie Torres and Beverly Pavone. Right, so everybody else agrees?
Yep.
Okay, I assume you're looking at your phone, means yes. All right.
Aye.
That one was down, Jessica, I promise.
Okay, no, I hear you.
Go ahead. So yeah, Jessica, I think you're correct, 100%. I think we, you know, that was definitely a great theory that George brought up that's concerning. So yeah, add that consideration under support.
Yep.
Need information on CB 2008 decision that may be in conflict with this proposal. We're in 2023.
I think that's a special, I think that's a special
It's
district.
okay.
Okay, I didn't,
It's
I
all right.
couldn't find any information.
Yeah, we're in 2020.
There's probably some other things, but
This is also where I would like us to consider, this. And, you know, I don't think it's going to change anything, but it piques the interest and starts a conversation, for those who read this, plant some seeds, and I think it's an important opportunity to
What-
take if we're comfortable with that.
which one?
At the bottom, so consider special requirements for formerly red line districts where local culture is at risk for
Love
erasure due to legacy of disinvestment. Work with LPC and PDC to ensure a special palette or menu exists for commercial districts in formerly red line areas. Should include some measure of CB review or PDC public comment, and could include a checkbox with DOB, all corner, all two violence.
Can we condense this to just the first and third sentences?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want me to read it out to everyone?
No, just read it.
Oh, yes. Great, thank you for
Love it.
saving me.
I love the cohesiveness. Number 13, auto repair.
We have a lot of do not support.
I see mostly not support, correct.
Eco does not support. So funny.
So let's count it. I know, I saw what you said. Don't do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, not supports out of 9. I don't have yours, Jess, there. So
I do not support.
where you at? You support it or no? Roughly, it's all right, I won't hold you to it.
Do I have to pick? I mean,
I left it blank here. You left it blank here. All right, good. No, that's good. That's good.
Don't support it.
The gang does not support it, so that, I'll give that a double up then. So we have
Thank
1, 2, 3, 4,
A little bit.
5 not supports, and 6 not supports out of 10. So we're at what majority rules do not support. Unless we have any contention, including Vinnie Torres, who's not on this list, so that's 7 out of 11 not supports. All right, I hear no contention, we'll stick to do not support, majority rules. And let's go into the considerations. Jessica, I think you wrote it out really well.
Thank you.
I don't think, unless you guys need to hear it, I think, I really wanna focus on the people who are not here, like Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, he's talked about border. That's more about the,
I'm concerned,
Congestion pricing.
that's more of a statement, right?
yeah.
All right, I want to consider, recommendations.
oversaturation, that's great. That covers. So
Where you at? I'm sorry.
monopoly on the market, I don't know that.
Yeah,
Existing
that's,
schools. So Beverly, your comment, this is from, you know, limiting the taking context into consideration.
Yes.
That's a really, really great, you know. I don't know,
I would like to add that as well.
I don't, that's the part where I now get conflicted. I am a CTE vocational trade guy. I love construction and auto repair shops next to schools, cause kids can go right after school and come and work on the job site. I mean,
I don't think that happens.
I mean, my dad, that's how my dad got started. Motorcycle.
a lot of my father-in-law, that's how he became a truck mechanic. Right after school, he used to go straight to the autos. But look,
Unless it's a program within the school.
No,
It's always a risk, right? The business is taking a risk regardless by letting students.
Yeah, that's
Personally, I think the like juxtaposition of those uses is less important than the oversaturation generally of auto uses within a given area. So I don't know if there's a way to clarify that.
I don't know if that problem exists
What?
either.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see all of it. I drive blocks without my tires being able to fix my tire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, run flats.
I mean, one time I had to go from one borough to another borough with a flat.
I drove,
Right.
I drove with a flat tire to the Catskills.
Are we happy with it, a regular old do not support then?
Yeah, we don't have to get into this. This is pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Last week I did, last week?
Well, you did put it, I'm sorry, let's just finish the comment before we get into, if we need, unless the discuss, you have a comment to add consideration?
Yeah, cause I was
Oh, excellent,
talking about the MX district. Cause they did that up in the Bronx where it was a lot of auto mechanic shops on
Webster
that.
Avenue.
And they didn't have a lot of residential, so they put a special, it was a special district. So with that, like if you have a garage already there, could they get a special district zoning for that? Or would that help? I don't know how the MX works,
Well, I
because I know they put residential in those districts, you couldn't have any residential unless it was already grandfathered in. You know, so, but they kept the shops. But you had a mixture with the residentials, I just want to know would that help?
It says here that the proposal's interest was to reduce, this is why I find it interesting, that we're not supporting it, but so be it. It says reduce conflicts between auto repair shops and pedestrians. That was the intention of this modification proposed by DCP. So, I mean, if we have a consideration,
I don't understand how that's possible, but
Yeah.
that's the definition of this, this change.
yeah.
It's allowing it,
I'm just a conduit.
yeah, it's allowing it to go in any commercial district with a special permit. It's allowing non-conforming auto repair uses to be expanded.
Yeah, didn't George say that somebody must have gotten good lobbyists from the auto?
Oh,
to
yeah,
slip
yeah.
This in the first place, like, why is this the one industry that has its like own group on this? I can think of 100 other things that could have been
I
here.
mean, we gotta not support.
Yeah, just leave it.
Do we have considerations?
No,
I don't hear them, which is a little disheartening to not support something, but we're not.
well, if I was gonna add it, I would add that we prevent, there's an analysis of what's existing in a 2-block
Oh,
radius
yes,
to
that's
prevent.
what I said that consideration goes in, so
Uh-huh.
why are you saying no?
Well, cause I thought we said, okay, is that okay? Does it,
Absolutely.
cause I'm thinking about the Bronx, honestly.
I don't.
I mean, it's
we're
2
not
blocks
worried
too
about
far.
East Harlem. I don't want 125th Street to turn into the auto zone. you
Right.
know? I'm joking, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah,
Okay,
on
so,
118, we have a little.
I mean, First Avenue, you got like 4
Yeah.
in 2 blocks.
I'm concerned with this.
I live right there.
Pricing, not really worried.
Those gas stations, though.
Cater to private-
With auto body shops, and then there's separate auto body shops.
And what was your consideration, Beverly? I didn't capture that. I know you were saying it was the MX special district, concept?
Yeah, but I was also concerned about how the proximity to certain businesses like schools, parks.
Oh, excellent. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would add that point too,
Yeah.
minus her CO, minus the housing comment.
okay,
Makes sense? Limit the distance from schools, healthcare facilities, playgrounds and parks with 50% expansion. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna change that to provide minimum distances. Cause distance limit means we wouldn't, it could only go within a certain limit,
Oh, okay.
so we want to go outside of
Reverse logic.
reverse.
Yes. Right idea.
That sounds like alternative facts. Since we're gonna lie, it became true, right?
Back to the drawing board.
14.
Thank you. Micro distribution. So we have 1, 2 supports, 3 supports, 4, 5. And Jessica has waived her vote to the dem, no, let me stop, what do you got?
Well, I got some comments, I don't know where.
And we have do not support, so that one, I think we should vote out. Those that support, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Where did I fall on this? Oh, I don't support it. Oh, did not support rule. Sorry, guys.
All right, no worries.
Economic development did not support it.
They seem very contradictory.
We've got-
Shouldn't
Comments are good.
they be promoting?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of
I have
content
no
there.
idea.
Elliot,
Yes,
I know. So that way we can do these considerations, get out. I promise you guys can talk and hang out all you want all night. I wanna get out of here.
so are we just straight out of do not
We have do not support, and then there's pretty much notations out. Mine's ensure that any and all, instead of writing hellfire, just write authorities having jurisdiction prior to approval. I know what everyone's worried about here is them, again, opening up those black stores or taking apartments and, filling it with Amazon boxes or, I'm using nice words. I think we know what we're
More
also.
so,
worried about.
there's sort of street traffic that, and I think the, potential for human powered delivery vehicles from our district is really high.
Mm.
A whole bunch of bike delivery guys
Yeah,
being able to,
to affect the quality of life.
well, I think if there's trucks, then that affects the air quality, right, obviously, and if there's a concentration of facilities, and the activeness of the facilities is the problem, and they don't have to do an environmental assessment or anything like that, if that's right.
I agree. Beverly Pavone, we have 49% is open to the public. Limit to ground floor is C1, C2, open to loading dock rules. Is that for them?
Well, okay, the 49%, because I know before they had a higher number or lower number in regards to it open to the public issue. So, I can't remember what it was, but I think I was saying at least 49% of that space is open to the public and whatever they sell in the micro district. And limit to C1 ground floor only. And I wanted those type of micro businesses to be higher than that. That was my concern.
Makes sense, Elliot?
hold on one second.
I got it.
I'm just trying to reuse similar language so we can see.
Couldn't take out the loading dock.
Okay, okay. So limit to ground floor. I think, for 49% open to the public, Devon, had the comment for required accessory retail component.
Right.
I feel like this is kind of saying the same thing
Mhm.
and without being so specific. And then I would say, Jason, that your comment, is like the other comments we've made about how it should already be being followed. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be included.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, so I'm gonna write require ground floor accessory retail for micro distribution uses, and then, restrict. Restrict. I can't find it. To ground floor and below, restrict use to ground floor and below, does that work?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read out this, reduce the square footage, these are large spaces. Enforces no papering over as with today, yeah, I think we got that, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, is that, so the transparency rules, can you just speak to that really quickly, because I think that is really important.
Yeah, so right now there are requirements for a certain percentage of street wall transparency for new commercial construction, and what typically happens is it gets either boxed up or covered over. There's no enforcement to have those conditions removed. And I think it would be a shame to continue those practices. in a micro distribution situation.
So like require transparency into ground floor micro distribution. Does it,
Sure.
okay, so we can add that, require ground floor accessory retail and ground floor,
Facade transparency.
okay, ground floor facade transparency, great. Does that work for everyone?
Sounds beautiful.
So that's what you don't support.
Number 15, campus commercial. Almost there.
Hmm,
I'm gonna count out the do not supports. 1 do not, 2 do not, 3. 3, so support wins. And for the record, economic development did not support campus commercial. We have more support. Is there anybody besides Mr. Torres not want to support this that are present in the room? Yeah, I got you. All right, cool. So, yeah, support rules, the majority rules.
All right. And it looks like the modification, everyone sings the same song.
Yes, I see the same. I tend to,
Hallelujah.
I get it. I don't know why my mind is stuck on, when I hear the word campus, I think of college.
I know, me too.
I immediately thought of NYCHA.
Yeah,
You got it,
no, it was
yeah.
awesome to think of it in that fashion.
Okay.
Though something tells me the info projects, they're gonna change their class, but we'll see. And applications to review, all right, do you have any other commentary? You wanna read is it the notation require majority of NYCHA residents
That's it.
approval for NYCHA campuses?
Yep.
Would support if there was some requirement for significant public input. And at least some involvement in the process by the local CB and the city council before new commercial spaces could be built on residential campuses. I like it.
Where is that one?
Mark, I'm just thinking out loud. All applications reviewed and approved by NYCHA, yep, got it. Required NYCHA. Got it. All right, so everyone's on the board with NYCHA.
Shoot, I mean.
What's Mark saying that's different?
I mean, you know, the same sort of sprinkling of community board review, we could add that since
Yeah.
that's part of what he's saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
love it. Yeah, let's keep it simple.
we'll sprinkle it in.
Ian, can we,
Say
I
it.
mean, I think that involvement, it's not just about proving what's going on, it's about
Shaping.
creating a pipeline to economic opportunity for, you know, for the people who are right there, right? I think if it just happens to you and you know, you don't have an opportunity to be a part of things, then it's, you know. So anyway, it's a process. It's not just about approval. I think it's you know, what goes there and kind of where exactly it goes. There's a lot of configurations that will impact the buildings that exist there already. And, you know, I think that's something that we've already said it, that, you know, NYCHA residents should absolutely be a part of.
Well, we're making it specific, for NYCHA. You wanna add more?
Yeah,
Would you like to read out what we have?
yeah, so far we have require a majority NYCHA resident approval for NYCHA campuses and require community board review and vote on application of non-residential uses on residential campuses.
We wanna add to that, maybe?
I would say engagement instead of approval.
Okay,
Require majority NYCHA resident engagement for NYCHA campus.
engagement and approval?
Why not?
Why not?
I'm hoping tenant board would review. I don't know, how is it anyone familiar with the NYCHA? I'm not really familiar with their tenant process.
I'm
Does the
sure
tenant-
there will be different camps, you know,
Okay.
on each campus of who have meetings and things like that.
Yeah, but it's based off of the project, right? There's not like an oversight by the residents?
No, that's the specific project calls for that.
Got
That's really rare.
Got it, all right. Definitely sound that, so then our point with CB being involved, the housing committee, I think all right, cool. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great add.
Yeah, that was awesome. Corner stores, number 16.
I forget what this one is. Oh, residential uses on a corner lot can have up to 2,100 retail.
Stores, do you want real quick, I'll read out with the roads. Corner stores, proposals to create a process for allowing corner stores in residential areas.
And this one already has CB layering
So
in the,
1, 2,
zoning.
3, 4, I mean, it's supported.
okay.
There's not one unsupport except for Mr. Torrance. And even economic development supported as a committee. So items of support, I'm not like, I mean, if you guys wanna add, I see we have. From Mr. Rama, city council, and community board involvement in hearings to allow for community buy-in.
Community board does have the process, but city council does not.
Right. So I wanted both of them.
Okay.
To be able to.
Greater Europe. I ain't out of it.
Do we want to add that?
Greater Europe out of it, right? I mean, listen, there's always a concern that instead of a corner grocery store, I end up with a corner pot shop. They get both the licenses and permits.
Yeah.
Cause they play through the line. I'm sorry, I'm picking on it only cause they're violent. They're everywhere. I've never seen a business get so fastly established in my 38 years New York life.
So Nilsa require both community board and
City council.
city council. Review and approval process.
So here we have, there's another one that sounds similar. This support assumes that CB approval is required for CPC authorization of the states in the DCD slide deck. That's interesting. I'd throw CPC in there too.
CPC,
Yeah. Like CV.
Yes.
You know.
yeah, because they
CPC.
specifically left out CPC, yeah.
So, look, we're helping you out there too, Jose.
Review and approval. Okay, great. So I have require community board. I'm actually gonna take community board because it's already in there. I'm just gonna require CPC and city council review and approval process. Yeah, in addition to community board.
In addition to,
All right.
or additionally,
Lovely.
How does this, include buildings that's on, nicer campuses that have corner store?
I don't think, I don't think they apply. I think it's one and the other,
Oh, okay.
but I'm not
I'm
an
not sure what
expert.
buildings wouldn't be part of this corner store.
oh, it sounds
Okay.
more like it's like just blocks that, like the example, the church.
Yeah.
Who did something and then it grew a little bit bigger and then people was pushed back and.
Literally the corner lot.
Right.
Like my cousin
Okay.
has a building in Florida and it's on the corner and she could build retail, but nobody else can.
I build a blog.
Oh, do you?
Anybody else?
I have to convince her first.
Okey dokey, moving along, number 17. Better waiver process. I have two. Let me do this. 1, 2, 3, all right.
17 and 18,
So-
right? Or the one-
Yeah, 17.
Support is actually support. You have more support than not support for better waiver process.
Okay. Any
That
modifications?
doesn't mean anything, you know, that, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Jessica, what was you gonna say?
Oh, sorry, every time you say we have more support than not, so I think we're moving on to modifications,
Yeah, I'm
so.
with you, but I gotta give, you know,
Yes.
the bodies that are present here have every opportunity to say, I changed my
True.
position that I wrote there as a working session favor for the committee. So if not, then okay, then we'll, unless anyone has any contention, we'll
you want to
call
do
the
hands?
support, right?
Support's good.
Support's good.
Good,
My-
okay, real quick then, since we're not,
Yeah.
alright, all those that support, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 supports. All those that don't support, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, no, I'm like, don't support.
Oh, you do, so 1, 2, 3, 4 for 3, so do not support rules.
Okay.
And that would be the first one that conflicts this form that we did. You guys know I like,
But-
you guys know I like my numbers.
EcoDev agrees.
It's okay, they got to win, so God, do your considerations for not supporting.
That's right.
I just. The reason why I did not support was because it's vague and it seems like unnecessary. I don't think there's any way to modify it to make it not vague and somehow necessary.
I love that comment right there is good enough.
Okay, great.
It is vague and unnecessary. Beverly Pavone wrote, add more entities besides BCA review and approvals. Oh, so basically you want you want the process to be more, I like that.
Yeah.
What's BSA?
Standard field.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Building of
No, you said it right, board of standard.
Board of Standards and Appeal. When reading the document, I think that's what the only ones that was involved, and I'm like, well, why just them?
Yeah.
I don't know too much about them, but I know them, CPC and, so,
Do we want to add that as a modification?
yeah.
Okay, so require. BSA review and approval. Sorry, I'm just gonna type it out, building.
Board of Standards.
I already counted the next one. Yeah, that was probably the easiest one.
Okay, so I just have do not support with modification, require building standard of appeals. Review. Where'd it go? And approval,
Yeah, BSA, CPC, you know.
and see,
Yeah, I did a peanut gallery.
Sorry.
We just talked for like the first time.
What?
Yeah,
I'll play the tape for you, Joe.
and then the last one's just support, because everybody supports it.
when
Right,
you feed your water.
okay, no objection to
Can't do it.
supporting,
No objection.
okay. All right, do we want to just run through the list here
Number 18?
for all of them?
Oh, yeah, there's number 18, support with no condition,
Right,
except for Vincent Torres. And economic development, for some reason, they don't want lost style apartments.
Is it me or did economic development not support a lot of things that
Their
would be
position-
economic development?
I don't know, I'm sorry, and I can't speak for them, but you guys were there, most some of you. They didn't feel prepared to take a position, so as opposed to taking a position, they took not support.
They voted from the heart.
Yeah, is what I was told. But it's okay, that's their right.
No, I was just asking.
They contributed, and if they wanna contend it full and full, well, we have. Yeah, I love, you guys see me.
This was great.
I've been doing this for too long at this point, so, but I will reach out to the board members I'm concerned about, specifically Mr. Eugene and one of you to reach out to Mark. I think he contributed very well
Yeah.
to this process, and I've been in conversations with Jazel and Anna, and we have Mr. Torres here, so, yeah, I think it doesn't, right, I know, yes, as far as I'm sorry. Yeah.
like, how do we want to do this?
I think we did it.
Well, we have to vote on it still.
Yeah, so do we need is there a motion to?
I make the motion to vote on all the.
Committee's recommendations,
Do we want to read it out just so we're all on the same? Okay.
we're adults.
We are.
So as far as, suggested changes to language or anything
Oh,
like
you're right.
that, I would recommend that right now we make a motion, with the intention that we put forward
Yeah.
through the work that we've just done, with the ability to suggest any language clarification between now and 24 hours before full board.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so we don't need to make that provision.
We don't-
If we don't trust each other, you have to make that provision. I am fully confident in this committee. We've been doing great work together for the last 2 years, so I am certain, my point to you as chair, I will ensure that if any comments come out of this committee or any concerns in modifying the language or even adding a point or two to an already established consideration, you have all right to do, right? Angel's gonna take this, and the next stage is we're gonna pretty much modify the last resolution that we did for carbon neutrality as far as the whereas is, right? The let it be resolved is what's been presented today. And then hopefully, actually, my goal is to get that done before executive. Right? Next executive is, next Thursday? It's Thursday. Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Oh.
Sleep here.
No, but you gotta remember what I just said, it's, we did all the work here, so it's just a matter of. Angel won't like me tomorrow, but I'll deal with it.
Is there, I think, when we talked about how are we going to do this, however many meetings ago, there was a suggestion from Angel that there be a general statement that precedes our position and specific responses to all 18 items. We came up with, a few things that were overarching, consistent statements that we would probably want to pull out and articulate. Or we're letting them be
No.
embedded in the.
The DCB monitored, originally we thought we were gonna do no, it's okay, I'll say it, it's public. We were initially intended to do a resolution for each item. So there was this thought of drawing out this granular statement, but, from what I've been taken back to understand at this point, is that we're supporting, not supporting, and providing considerations. Some of the other processes that we're adding is, it will be filed in the record, but it won't be acknowledged as CPC or DCB.
Just saying where our position would go to our council member, who is then going to continue to advocate on our behalf as this process continues. If we are able to clearly articulate what some of those consistent community board review opportunities and support for enforcement and compliance, that would make sure, you know, the things that we've mentioned a number of times, proximity to, you know, congestion, lines, et cetera, saturation, those are like 5 things that really matter.
Yeah.
Which can get buried in the answers, but so in the responses. So
Yeah, I think using consistent language and repeating things across items is helpful in that way, which is what we did.
and not pulling them out and saying these are the things we care about, and they come up again and again
Right.
in our formal responses.
Oh, yeah, oh, well, I think that can be like the body of the text before the.
That's what
yeah,
I
yeah.
suggest, yes, that there be a body of the text before
Yes.
the actual, okay, great. Does that explain?
It's,
No, I know, we drafted, this was a long time ago, we drafted is the resolution template not available?
no,
to the members?
it's already it's already ready to go. I think, it just has some, like Laura steps, some,
No, I know
like,
for this, but there, you know, we drafted it, this, cause this it's kind of, it's a separate conversation, I'll bring it up at executive. Because I think that point needs to be redriven.
Yeah.
Because there's always a concern in the format, but we've already established that.
Yeah.
So I think that way, not just, it's more experience of a great point, that other members are gonna, I keep hearing it.
Yeah.
But it's the same process every time.
I know,
I think we need to make sure that our members understand.
to be honest, this job is really hard.
Yeah,
And we're all like just doing our best and we're doing a great job, so
I think
it's,
you're doing great.
it's
You're
really
all
hard
doing
job.
great, so.
Especially the time period that
Would
we
you like
have
to
to
take a
do
motion now,
Exactly.
or
yeah.
would you like to read it out loud first?
Which committee's recommendations and all 18 points.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried.
All right.
We did it, hey.
I sent it to both of y'all.
I love how you just did that, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hang in there, goodbye.
Oh, Angel.
Adjourn. Here he is.
High blood pressure.
Okay.
Morning.
Oh.